throwaway for obvious reasons. I feel like I'm going crazy and my entire family has turned against me over something that should have been good news. My mom found out I got a huge promotion and raise that I'd been hoping for months, and when it finally happened last week, I kept it secret from my family, and now she's acting like I personally betrayed the whole family. Am I the idiot for not telling them about my career success? So I, female, 25, work in finance, and just got promoted to senior financial analyst with a raise to $150, which is honestly insane money for someone my age. Like, I still can't believe it's real. But here's the thing. I deliberately didn't tell my family about it, and I guess I have my reasons. Quick background, because this mess goes way back. I'm the younger kid. My brother Jake, male, 28, is the smart one, according to my parents. Growing up, everything was about his potential and his ideas and his whatever. I worked my ass off through high school and college, while my parents just threw money at Jake every time he wanted to change majors. He changed majors like 5 times, and they just kept paying. When I needed textbooks, I had to work extra shifts at Target. Family dinners were always the Jake show. He'd talk about his latest business idea, while my actual career achievements got maybe 2 minutes of fake interest. Like when I made Dean's List 3 semesters in a row. Mom said that's nice and immediately asked Jake about his philosophy thesis. When I got my first real job, Dad nodded and then spent an hour talking about Jake's food truck plan, which never happened, by the way. So anyway, I've been at my company for 3 years now, and things have been going really well. I started as a junior analyst and worked my way up, put in crazy hours, took on extra projects. My boss has been hinting about a promotion for months, but I didn't want to jinx it by talking about it. Then last Wednesday happens. I'm literally reading my promotion email when my phone rings. It's my mom, and she sounds more excited than I've heard her in years. Mom told me that Jake got his first real client, and she was so excited. 20 minutes straight about Jake's big moment and how proud she is and how he's finally found his calling. I kid you not, she used the word entrepreneur like 15 times, and I just couldn't. I couldn't interrupt her excitement about Jake to talk about my thing. It felt wrong somehow, like I'd be taking away from his moment, which is stupid because it's not like my promotion affects his business at all, but that's just how it felt. So I kept my mouth shut and let her talk. She went on about this client meeting and how professional Jake was. Meanwhile, I'm Googling what $150K salary actually means after taxes and trying not to hyperventilate. After that call, something changed. Hearing how excited she was about Jake's first client made me realize that this was exactly the pattern I'd been dealing with my whole life. Even my biggest career achievement would somehow become secondary to whatever Jake was doing. So I decided to wait and see if anyone would actually ask about my life for once. Here's where it gets weird though. After that call, I just kept not telling them. My dad called the next week to talk about Jake's business, and I didn't mention it then either. Then Mom called to say Jake was really hitting his stride, and I just listened. I think part of me was waiting for someone to ask about my job, like maybe show some interest in what I've been doing. But that never happened. Plus, and this is going to sound petty, but whatever, I learned in college that showing I had money made me a target for family borrowing. Jake would always need help with rent or textbooks, and somehow it always fell on me to help out because I was responsible with money. Money that never got paid back, obviously. So I've been living like I'm still broke around them. When Mom visits, I shop at discount stores and buy generic everything. She always compliments me on being smart with money while I'm internally calculating that I've saved like $40 in the past 6 months alone. But here's where everything went to hell. My company does these employee spotlight things on LinkedIn. They posted about my promotion with the whole corporate speak thing about rising talent and exceptional performance or whatever. Last Sunday, we're at my aunt's house for a family barbecue. I'm helping Aunt Carol with dishes when my cousin Emma, female, 26, walks into the kitchen. Emma's been job hunting for like 8 months since she got laid off. Emma saw my company's LinkedIn post about my promotion and asked why I didn't mention it. Aunt Carol heard from the dining room and asked what promotion. Then, Mom came running in from outside, demanding to know what we're talking about. Emma told everyone about the promotion post on LinkedIn. Mom looked really upset. She pulled me aside and asked why I would hide such wonderful news from them, and if I didn't think they'd be happy for me. And I'm trying to explain that I work in finance where LinkedIn stuff is required, but I didn't want to make a big deal about it, which sounds stupid even as I'm saying it because obviously it is a big deal. But then she gets this look and asks how long I've been keeping this from them and what exactly the position pays. I made the mistake of being honest. I told her about the $150 and she just lost it. She started going on about how I've been living a lie and making them worry about my finances while I've been secretly successful. She's acting like I personally tricked her by not telling everyone my salary. The worst part, she immediately starts talking about how this changes things for Jake's business, how maybe I could invest in his company or help with startup costs. Like my promotion is somehow about him. I tried to explain that I want to build up my savings and maybe buy a house, but she cut me off saying I'm being selfish and forgetting where I came from. Then she brings up how they sacrificed so much to support both of us through college, which they supported him through college while I worked, but okay. Now the whole family is involved. Dad called yesterday saying I disappointed them and that family should share good news and bad news together. My aunt is texting about how they just want to be proud of me. Even Jake called talking about how hurt mom is and how I should have trusted them with my success. But here's what's really bothering me. Jake's been crashing at my parents' place for 3 months because his lease fell through. They've been calling non-stop to brag about his entrepreneurial breakthrough while he's literally homeless and living on their couch. But somehow I'm the one who's living a lie. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. My success is somehow a betrayal, but Jake's situation is totally fine and worth celebrating. I mean, maybe I should have told them. Maybe keeping it secret was wrong. But after years of watching them throw money and attention at Jake while barely acknowledging my actual achievements, I just wanted something that was mine for a while. Is that so terrible? And honestly, this is probably going to sound awful. I don't trust them not to ask for money. Not after all the loans that never got repaid and all the times my financial responsibility became everyone else's solution. I don't know anymore. Am I being paranoid and selfish? Should I have shared the good news even though they never seemed genuinely interested in my career unless there's something in it for them? Am I the idiot for keeping my promotion and Ray's secret from my family? Now for the first update. Thanks to everyone who commented on my last post about hiding my promotion from my family. A lot of you said my parents sounded like they were more interested in my money than my success. And, well, you weren't wrong. Things got weirder yesterday, and now I'm starting to think there's more going on than just family stuff about my career news. So my dad called me yesterday afternoon, which is weird because my dad usually never calls me during the week. But ever since the whole promotion thing blew up at the barbecue, he's been calling more often. Still, this was a Tuesday at 3 p.m., and he sounded different than when he called Monday. He starts the conversation by asking about my apartment. Not like, hey, how's the new place? But specific questions about square footage and if I have extra space. I'm thinking this is random small talk, so I'm telling him about my living room setup, and he cuts me off asking if I have a guest situation. I asked what he meant by guest situation, and he got all awkward and started asking if I had a pull-out couch or if my second bedroom could accommodate someone temporarily. Like, what? My dad has never cared about my furniture before. The last time he visited my place was when I moved in 2 years ago, and he spent the whole time complaining about city parking. So I'm like, Dad, what's going on? Why do you need to know about my guest space? And he starts making these weird non-answers about how it's just good to know these things, and you never know when family might need help. That's when I realized he was asking if my brother could crash at my place. I asked him straight up if this was about Jake, and he got quiet for like 10 seconds. Then he's like, well, Jake's between living situations right now, and we're just exploring options. Between living situations. That's literally what he said. Like Jake is some kind of nomad by choice instead of a 28-year-old man who, wait for it, has been sleeping on their couch for 3 months. Yeah, 3 months. My successful entrepreneur brother, who mom has been gushing about nonstop, has been homeless and living in their basement for a quarter of the year. When I asked why Jake needs housing if his business is doing so well, Dad started making these ridiculous excuses about transitional periods and office space situations. I'm not even kidding. He tried to tell me that Jake is between office rentals, so he's temporarily using their address for business purposes. I was like, Dad, you realize that makes no sense, right? If Jake has clients and income, why can't he afford an apartment? Or even a studio? Like, I get that business income can be irregular, but we're talking about basic housing here. That's when Dad's voice cracked and the whole story fell apart. Turns out there is no successful business. There's no first client. There's no income at all. Mom made up the big client meeting story because she wanted to have good news to share for once, which honestly makes me feel terrible for her, but also, why lie to me about it? Dad tells me Jake's credit is completely destroyed from his previous ventures. Apparently, Jake has defaulted on so many things over the years that he can't get approved for apartments, car loans, credit cards, anything. He's been sleeping on their couch since March because no landlord will rent to him and he has no income to show anyway. Since March. I thought it'd been 3 months, but if it's March, I realized I'd been lowballing it in my head. It's been way longer than 3 months. But here's where it gets really bad. Dad starts crying, like actually sobbing on the phone, and he tells me they've been funding Jake's business attempts for 2 years now. Not just the recent stuff, 2 full years of startup costs and living expenses and equipment and incorporation fees and website development and business licenses and on and on. I asked how much, and Dad said they've gone through almost all of their retirement savings. They had like $200K saved up, and now they're down to maybe $30. I literally couldn't speak for a minute. Like, my parents are 56 and 54 years old. They should be thinking about retiring in 10 years, not starting over financially. Dad's working overtime shifts now, and Mom picked up extra hours at her part-time job just to cover their basic expenses. Meanwhile, Jake is eating their food and using their utilities and gas money while contributing absolutely nothing. And here's the part that's really messing with my head. They've been telling everyone about Jake's promising business venture while secretly going broke. The neighbors think Jake is some kind of entrepreneur success story. My aunt thinks he's doing so well that she's been asking him for business advice. So I'm processing all this, and I tell Dad I want to help. I explain that I'm literally a financial analyst, and I could look at their situation and maybe help them create a recovery plan. Like, this is exactly what I do for work. Analyze spending patterns and create budgets and figure out debt consolidation options. And Dad freaked out, like immediately started making excuses about why that wouldn't work, saying the situation is too complicated for me to understand and that looking at their finances wouldn't help anyway. When I pushed and said I could at least review their monthly expenses to see where the money is going, he got agitated and said, I don't understand their commitments. Commitments? What commitments? We're talking about retirement savings that are almost gone. What could be more important than figuring out how to stop the bleeding? I told him that as a financial professional, I've seen every kind of money problem, and there's no spending situation that would be too embarrassing for me to look at. But he just kept saying it's too complicated, and you don't understand the whole picture. Then he abruptly said he had to get back to work and hung up. And now I'm sitting here wondering what the hell is going on, because Dad's reaction doesn't make sense. If they're just broke from funding Jake's business failures, why would he be defensive about showing me their bank statements? Like, yeah, it would be embarrassing to admit they threw away $170K on nothing, but they already admitted that part. I keep thinking about how he said the situation was too complicated and mentioned commitments, like there are ongoing expenses I don't know about. But what other expenses could there be? Jake isn't paying rent anywhere else. He's not in school. What commitments? And honestly, the more I think about it, the more I realize my family has been lying to me about everything for months. Mom's fake client story, Dad's successful entrepreneur narrative, nobody mentioning that Jake is literally homeless. Like, why would they go to such lengths to make his situation sound good when it's this? I'm starting to wonder if the whole blow-up about my promotion wasn't really about me keeping secrets. Maybe they were upset because they've been keeping much bigger secrets and mine made them feel guilty. I don't know what to do here. Part of me wants to drive over there and demand to see their actual financial situation so I can help them. Has anyone dealt with family members who are hiding financial problems? I don't know how to get them to be honest about it. I feel like I'm missing a huge piece of this puzzle, and it's driving me crazy. Now for the second update. I found out why they won't let me see their finances. I woke up to like 500 messages telling me to just go over there and figure out what's really going on. You guys were right that my dad's reaction was weird when I offered financial help. I realize now that when I said Jake had been living there for 3 months in my first post, I was really underestimating. It's been since March, so more like 6 months. I guess I was in denial about how long this had actually been going on. So, I spent the rest of Tuesday evening and all of Wednesday morning researching debt consolidation options and planning. Honestly, I was probably procrastinating because I was nervous about the whole thing. But I put together this whole spreadsheet with different scenarios for paying down debt and rebuilding savings. Like I literally brought my work laptop home and set up projections showing how they could recover from this if we just got a clear picture of their actual spending. I decided to just drive over there Wednesday afternoon. No warning, no phone call ahead. I figured if I gave them time to prepare, they'd just come up with more excuses about why they didn't need help. When I got there, around 4 p.m., both my parents looked terrible. Mom usually does her hair and makeup for everything, but she looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. Dad was just sitting at the kitchen table, staring at his phone. Jake was in the kitchen, pacing back and forth. When I walked in, he stopped and stared at me like I'd caught him doing something. I announced that I was there to help with financial planning and showed them my laptop bag. Explained that I'd been working on debt consolidation scenarios and wanted to input their actual numbers to create a realistic plan. The silence was weird. Nobody moved for at least 10 seconds. Then Mom starts making these weird small talk attempts about how I didn't need to drive all the way over and how they were handling things and maybe we could do this another time. Meanwhile, Jake is back to pacing and making these huffing noises like he's trying to calm himself down. I set up my laptop on the kitchen table and pulled up my financial planning software. Asked them to get their bank statements so we could input monthly expenses and see where the money was actually going. That's when they completely froze. Mom and Dad looked at each other with panic. Mom's hands started shaking, and Jake stopped pacing and said that wasn't necessary. It was too embarrassing. I tried to explain that I'm literally a financial analyst and I've seen every possible kind of spending problem, like people who spend $800 a month on mobile games, people with gambling addictions, people who haven't opened their credit card statements in years. There's nothing they could show me that would be more embarrassing than some of the accounts I've reviewed professionally. But Jake kept getting more worked up, started saying they didn't need my help and I should just leave them alone to figure it out themselves. Which, dude, you've been figuring it out for 6 months while bleeding money. Clearly that's not working. I pointed out that his reaction was way over the top for normal embarrassment about spending. Like if they'd just maxed out credit cards on stupid stuff, that would be embarrassing, but not whatever this was. Mom tried to change the subject by asking if I wanted coffee, but her voice was shaking. Dad was just staring at the table. That's when I realized they weren't embarrassed about their spending. They were terrified of me seeing something specific in their bank statements. I asked them directly what they were so afraid of me finding. More silence. Jake started pacing again, but faster this time, and he kept running his hands through his hair and muttering stuff under his breath that I couldn't hear. I told them I wasn't leaving until I understood what they were hiding, that I'd driven over to help them, and their reaction was weird. Finally, Dad cracked. He said there are some payments to someone that aren't business-related. I asked who they were paying and why. Mom started crying, like full-on sobbing. And Jake's pacing turned into this frantic back-and-forth thing where he kept starting to say something and then stopping. That's when it clicked for me. I remembered how in college Jake was always asking to borrow my assignments for reference, how he'd take my laptop sometimes to check my formatting on papers, how my printed assignments would go missing from my desk and then show up weeks later in weird places. I looked at Jake and asked directly if this was related to my college work. He completely fell apart. Like I've never seen my brother cry before. Not when he broke his arm in middle school. Not when our dog died. Never. But he just collapsed into one of the kitchen chairs and started sobbing. And then it all came pouring out. He admitted that during his senior year, he systematically stole my assignments and turned them in as his own work. Not just like 1 or 2 papers. We're talking about major projects, essays, even my senior capstone project that I worked on for an entire semester. 6 months ago, someone from his old study group figured it out. This guy, let's call him Mark, who apparently kept copies of assignments for reference, realized he was seeing the same work submitted by different people in different semesters. Mark confronted Jake about it, and when Jake admitted it was true, Mark demanded $2,000 a month to keep quiet about it. $2,000 every month for 6 months. That's $12,000 they've paid to keep this secret, plus all the money they gave Jake for fake business expenses. We're looking at probably $20,000 that's gone to covering up the fact that my brother stole my college work. But here's the part that's really making me lose my mind. Remember how I mentioned my senior capstone project, the one that was supposed to be the highlight of my college portfolio? I had to completely redo that project from scratch because when I went to submit it, the system flagged it as already being in use. I thought it was a technical error, the null. So I rewrote the entire thing in 2 weeks and turned in something way less polished than my original work. I lost academic honors because of that rewrite. I didn't get the graduate school recommendations I needed because my advisor thought my revised capstone showed lack of planning and poor time management. Jake stole the work I spent months on, turned it in as his own, and then I had to scramble to create something new while dealing with what I thought was a computer glitch. The academic setbacks that I blamed on my own poor planning. That was Jake stealing my work and leaving me to deal with the consequences. And my parents, Dad admitted they suspected something was wrong when I called about the technical problems, but they didn't want to believe Jake would actually steal my work. They only found out for sure later when Jake confessed to them during a breakdown sophomore year. They let me struggle through the rewrite. They let me blame myself for poor planning when I couldn't figure out why my original submission wasn't working. They watched me get lower grades and lose academic opportunities because of something Jake did, and they never said a word. I asked them why they would pay blackmail instead of just letting Jake face consequences for something he actually did. Dad said they were terrified the scandal would destroy Jake's chances of getting his life together, that he'd never be able to get a decent job if it came out. But what about my career? What about the opportunities I lost because of his cheating? What about the academic honors I didn't get? The graduate school recommendations that fell through? The scholarships I missed out on? Jake never even apologized for the academic stuff. He just kept crying about how the blackmail was ruining everything and how he never meant for it to go this far. I think I'm in shock. Like, I keep going back to all those times I struggled in college while Jake seemed to coast through everything. All those times my parents praised his academic performance while barely acknowledging mine. The work he was getting praised for was literally my work. I don't know what to do with this information. Part of me wants to contact Mark myself and just let him release everything. Why should my family go bankrupt protecting Jake from consequences he earned? But also, my parents have already lost most of their retirement savings. They're working overtime to make blackmail payments. This is destroying them financially and emotionally. I left without saying much else because I needed time to process this. But I keep thinking about how different my college experience might have been if I'd actually gotten credit for my own work. How different my career trajectory might have been if I'd graduated with honors and strong recommendations. And I keep thinking about how they've been lying to me for months about Jake's success while secretly paying someone to cover up the fact that he stole from me. I don't know if I'm more angry about the original cheating, the cover-up, or the fact that they let me think I was the failure when it was Jake who couldn't do his own work. What would you even do in this situation? Edit 1. Yes, I saved screenshots of all our text conversations about Jake's successful business because I had a feeling something was off. 2. No, I haven't contacted Mark yet, but I found him on LinkedIn and, yeah, this is definitely real. 3. To those asking about the timeline, the blackmail started in March, which explains why Jake suddenly needed to move back home temporarily.